Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to be back to the UN. I left the UN 20 years ago after serving this organization for 15 years. And one of the things I can tell you is that despite the time, not too many things had changed in what we call the digital transformation. I was in Geneva when the World Wide Web was invented. Actually, I was an expert in the UN working with Tim Berners-Lee when the web was invented. There was an historical moment. At that time, we all thought for first time the human knowledge could be decentralized from silos and be distributed to developing countries. I was very young at that time, maybe a bit naive, and I thought that this invention will change the world. So the web expanded. The web, as you know, started with CERN. It was an experiment done by physicists with the need to interconnect machines. And the original architecture of the web, and we realized that very, very early because we were at the genesis, we realized something is that the human was not factored or coded into the architecture. So the Web 1.0, we are now talking about the Web 3.0, does not know what a human is. So we human, we don't exist in the internet revolution. We don't exist in the AI revolution. We don't exist on the blockchain revolution. We don't exist on the fourth industrial revolution altogether. We are something that the machine don't understand what we are. And I am fully aligned with Professor Juster in what he just said, because the most complex and sophisticated algorithm the Earth has ever had is the human, or capability not only to process complexity over 200,000 years that we have been here, combined with our emotional capability, spiritual capability, and many others, make us the most sophisticated algorithm ever. Another thing that was said this morning, I think was also by you, Doctor, is that the people that are coding algorithms today, they are geeks. They have absolutely no moral obligations or even in some cases knowledge. Some of them, actually, the average age is 27 years old. Remember what you were when you were 27 years old if you have to code the algorithms which are going to power basically humanity in the next years to come. So one of the things that I did, I left the UN after serving 15 years, and I created a company. I say, stop to talk, let's to act. And the only way to act in this is by resolving the original problem. A digital identity, it's not something that qualifies you as a Facebook user or Google user or national identity of a country or a bank account or a telecom subscription. That's not the definition of digital identity. A digital identity is basically the extrapolation of your human identity in the digital world. So what human identities are things that we control. I mean, when we born, we have a certificate of birth, right, which is the original document that we all use to issue many other things, or passports or identity cards. We have to show the birth certificate before we get anything else. We do not have a birth certificate on the internet. Humans enter the internet in a fake way, which is by becoming a consumer identity. What you get when you enter into social media or when you enter into a telco subscription or in a bank account, you're basically becoming a consumer identity. And that consumer identity does not even belong to you. That consumer identity will belong to the platform that are using you that grant. Now, the United Nations has an international standard, which is the X509 standard, which is a digital identity standard that we have there for so many years, which is based in cryptographic root capability, what we call PKI, public infrastructure, that basically allows you to create cryptographic root keys, which are trusted by third trusted parties, in particular United Nations or agencies, that basically let countries to issue an identity based on that cryptographic root key. So basically the private key issues public keys, and the public keys are there stored into devices, telephones. You pay your taxes, you can vote online. My company was the first ever pioneer with the Swiss government to do online voting in 2002. And we let Swiss users to use a digital identity to vote. So the technology is there and is being used, but it has not been properly distributed globally. And why? because you have a $10 trillion economy that is making money out of this. So you have, when you say how social media companies make money, how internet platforms make money, it's basically by data mining, owning your digital identity under a permanent consent. So when you log in by default into something that issues you a digital identity today, basically what you're doing, you are giving away your consent. So if you compare that to our analog life, if you compare that to what we do in the day-to-day, it will be equivalent to invite a friend to have a dinner in your house one day, and from that day, that person will come in every day to have a dinner in your house, because that consent cannot be withdrawn. So the consent that you are giving, and we all that gave already, to social media companies and companies that they are making money on digital identity, makes it impossible for us to withdraw that consent. We just basically cannot get back. So WISeKey, which means World Internet Secure Keys, and cryptography company. Basically, we have created cryptography root keys. The cryptography root key of WISeKey was created in cooperation of ITU and a Swiss foundation with the name OISTE, Organisation Internationale pour la Sécurité des Transactions Électroniques. And basically what we do is that we work with countries and we're trying to educate them about a digital identity. When a country comes to us and say, hey, I want to issue a national identity for the citizens of the country, we tell them, okay, well, you can do that, but what about if the country users own their identity? Will you be willing to give that control back to the user? And then obviously that discussion gets a bit complicated, right? Because everybody wants to control everybody. That's the norm of the digital economy. Why? Because we humans become the product. When we give something on the internet, whether it's a social media usage or you are entering into a metaverse in our days, basically you are the product. We are the product. And that's why we get things for free, because we don't realize that we are the product. And with what we pay? With our digital identity. So there is absolutely essential that international organizations, the United Nations in particular, and this forum maybe as a thought leader, can educate the world that if we really want to protect humans in the fourth industrial revolution, we have to create the knowledge that a digital identity is only an extrapolation of a human identity, and as a consequence, it is a human right. And I'm also working with the Human Rights Commission not to make all the digital right, all the human right digital rights. That will be a long way. But at least to recognize one of them, which is a digital identity is a human identity right, and that should be protected by the legislations of countries. Today, legislation protects your data, GDPR, EIDAS in the European Union. It protects your interaction, but do not protect your identity. You won't necessarily see a country that has adopted the norm that a digital identity belongs to the user. And that what that will mean in practical terms. So that means that you will basically create a cryptographic key. Then you will store in your laptop, in your mobile phone, or in a USB, and put in your safe if you don't want to use it. But at least you have it, you own it. And then that will become the single sign-on of all web platforms. So no platform should be entitled not to let you go in with your key, because this identity basically is the key to open many doors. And no door. And as we were very successful, and Thierry Breton was 3 days ago very in great satisfaction, because the European Union has agreed on connecting computers and laptops with the same plug, with the same, we have a standardized plug. And this is a great thing, great, we standardize plug. But what about the standardized identities? What about if all our identities will be able to access everything, and all the logs on the digital economy will be open to that identity? Now, when we talk about AI, I mean, there's a lot of confusion about AI. AI, I remember when cloud was sexy and everybody was using the name cloud for everything. Now people are using AI for everything, and soon, in a few months, maybe years, we're only going to be using quantum for everything. The problem today is not in one particular technology. The fourth industrial revolution, and I was in 2016 with Klaus Schwab in the web when that was launched in the World Economic Forum, it is something different. Fourth industrial revolution is the convergence of technologies. Each of those technologies, blockchain, IoT, AI, quantum, neuroscience, are becoming exponentially expandable, means that they are reaching a moment in their evolution that we cannot control anymore. Humans do not have anymore the capability, whether it is intellectual capability or even technical capability, to control the interactions of those technologies. That happens in the Renaissance. When the Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci, and very genius at that time, realized that mathematics, architecture, design got together to basically create a new society. But this is happening now. The exponentiality of technology means that they are enriching each other. AI is growing very fast because data is going very fast. Why AI was not successful 10 years ago? Because we didn't have enough data. Now we have a lot of data, but actually we have also a lot of fake data. So AI is as good as you put inside the AI. You know, if you put garbage into AI, you get garbage back from AI. So the identification is essential. We are in a society which is going to, we are in the process of putting 1 trillion objects connected to the internet. Now, those objects don't have yet identities, which is crazy. I mean, my company, we just launched a constellation of satellites. We just launched 14 satellites with SpaceX and a startup in Spain with the name FOSA. We launched satellites, and they are IoT satellites, and they are able to track real-time identity into objects. So your car, your fridge, your connected device, anything that connects with the internet is trackable now through the satellites. But what we are realizing is manufacturers do not put identity at the object level. They just put a SIM ID. In some cases, it's a serial number, and that is so unsecure. So only now, in the last years, you're going to see legislation around putting identity protection into devices. Why? Because if you don't, and you hack one device, from that device you can hack the entire ecosystem. So we are entering into the era of identity. And it's a very big subject, because identity is not only technology, it's sovereignty, it's power, it's control. And basically what the humans are not yet ready to do is to let other humans to take ownership on their destiny. We are still in a very patriarchal structure when we talk about the internet, like a group of people just taking decisions from the rest of the humanity. The humanity has been created by maybe 60, 70 million people. We are 8 billion people soon that can contribute to the global development by just being a voice to the next industrial revolution. But for that, we need to give them the method. We need to give them the possibility of being available to access the internet without any channel, without any filter, without any disturbances. So as we enter into what I call the quantum era, in few years, we're going to have quantum computers arriving there. We are reaching singularity by the year 2030, which is actually the year that many of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations will reach maturity as well. And there is a disconnect. I mean, there is one of the SDG that says basically that every human should have a political identity before the year 2030. How far are we from that? I mean, how many identities do we have now? There are people in India, and I have been traveling the world with the UN and after with the private sector, they are totally excluded. The fact of not having a digital identity, it is a very concrete way for mafias of the world and human slavery and trafficking to basically use the fact that people do not have an identity, they don't exist in the society. So I think this forum might be one of the thought leaders into this. I think there is a need to put process, and there is a need to move in 3 areas. One area is technology. Technology companies that they are making money by basically converting human into products needs to be stopped as soon as possible, because if not, we're going to reach a situation where humans are not going to be able to participate anymore into any revolution. If we let machines continue exponentially to grow, humans will be viewed by those machines and those algorithms as a liability, because we are slow, because we die, because we breathe and we use CO2, and now we are basically a factor to be eliminated in those algorithms. So in order to let this exponentiality growing, we need a kill switch. We need a switch that we can stop those machines to take decisions, and they will be controversial and contra the human evolution. And the only switch that we can take is our identity. If the machine checks our identity, and the person says, sorry, machine, I don't want to connect to you because I don't trust you, or I don't like you, or you are not based on my moral, spiritual, or any value. If we don't do that as soon as possible, we will enter into something which will look very bad. And this is what there are people thinking that this is already over, that we will not be able to get back. There are movements that say, hey, singularity is reaching the Earth. Is actually a singularity university already training people on this future humanity where humans will not be there anymore. So just provoking thoughts. But they are based on a huge experience. I have been working with that all my career. And although I am always an optimist, and you need to be an optimist in order to be in front of technology, I am a pessimist, and we are so slow in solving some fundamental issues, which is basically giving every human being an identity. Thank you very much.